February 17th, 2026, George's Hall at Windsor Castle stood bathed in the muted glow of morning sunlight slicing through centuries-old windows, and the air was thick with anticipation. Beneath its towering, vaulted ceiling, one of Britain's most legendary royal halls, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, stepped forward behind a gilded lectern. Today, he wasn't just speaking as a member of the royal family, he was commanding the weight of an institution. Every eye in the hall and every camera across the world was trained on him. Since the Platinum Jubilee earlier that day, whispers had swept the palace corridors. Change was coming, and it would be decisive. William opened with a tone of solemn clarity. "The House of Windsor declares a new chapter," he began, and the words resonated like the clang of a ceremonial bell. A chapter not dictated by sentiment, gossip, or fleeting alliances, but by discipline, duty, and the uncompromising stewardship of an ancient institution. This was no ordinary address. This was the public unveiling of Royal Order No. 17, a document born of months of legal scrutiny, political manoeuvring, and raw family tension. Drafted under the guidance of Princess Anne, Lord Pembroke and Duchess Sophie, and unanimously ratified by the Royal Family Tribunal on February 15th, the order drew a sharp, irreversible line. Prince Harry was barred from returning to any official royal role. All privileges, titles, heraldry, and rights previously linked to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were suspended indefinitely. Assets and inheritance connected to their branch of the family were frozen, securing the Crown estate from any potential erosion. William's words cut clean. If the monarchy had the courage to strip Andrew of his titles for the sake of the Crown, then it must muster the same resolve for Harry, even if it meant drawing the hardest lines within its own bloodline. William cited King Charles III's historic October 30th, 2025 order, which had stripped Prince Andrew of all royal titles, reducing him to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The move had shocked observers, but the real blow came with his eviction from Royal Lodge, where he had lived under a long-term lease since 2003. Despite pledges to Queen Elizabeth II to spare her son, Charles acted decisively. Andrew was relocated to Marsh Farm, a ramshackle cottage on the edge of Sandringham, perched precariously in a floodplain with no private chapel, no staff quarters, and no royal security infrastructure. William made it clear, "My father's decision was a sacrifice, not an exile. It was the foundation of what we now call the doctrine of internal discipline, a doctrine that now extends to Prince Harry." Harry, still reeling from a confidential divorce from Meghan Markle finalised in January 2026, found himself caught in a maelstrom. Custody disputes, image rights battles, and leaks surrounding reputation management flooded headlines. William's new order confirmed what insiders had long suspected. The royal family would make no exceptions. On February 10th, Lady Louise Windsor, working with royal legal officers, submitted a confidential 117-page dossier to the tribunal, documenting irregularities in Archie and Lilibet's birth records across multiple jurisdictions. The dossier outlined commercial agreements, exploiting the children's images, and alleged breaches of international child protection protocols. The dossier dropped a bombshell. Meghan Markle had reportedly greenlit a media licensing deal for a children's series called Sussex Kitchen, featuring Archie and Lilibet as recurring characters. Shockwaves rippled through both the Privy Council and legal advisers. Suddenly, the dispute was no longer private. It was constitutional, legal, and moral, touching the very legitimacy of succession and family stewardship. Lord Pembroke declared, "This can no longer be treated as a personal feud. It is a matter of succession, precedent, and moral clarity." Royal Order No. 17 introduced a groundbreaking constitutional mechanism, the creation of royal matrons. Princess Catherine and Duchess Sophie were named legal guardians and custodians of Archie and Lilibet. While the children would not receive princely titles, their education, healthcare, and digital likenesses would be fully protected by the Crown. William addressed the public with unflinching authority. These children remain of Windsor. They will not be bartered in courts of public opinion, nor auctioned to the highest bidder on entertainment platforms. Reports leaked from Montecito indicated that Harry had privately approached Princess Catherine's team, offering to relinquish full custodial rights if divorce documents remained sealed. His plea, "If I let go, will they finally be safe?" But Meghan's legal team immediately objected on February 17th, seeking to prevent any transfer of guardianship without her direct consent. The stage was set for a transatlantic clash unlike anything the monarchy had faced, a legal, political, and symbolic showdown spanning continents. Despite escalating tension, William's demeanour remained calm but unyielding. "My duty is not to comfort discomfort," he reminded the world. "It is to preserve legacy, not reconcile the irreconcilable." Headlines erupted from Sydney to New York, calling it a constitutional rupture wrapped in calm. In Britain, approval ratings for William as future king skyrocketed to 84%, and a Morning Times editorial summed it up succinctly: "He chose the crown." With that, the Royal Reset Doctrine officially commenced, a sweeping strategy for the post-Elizabethan era. At its helm was a prince no longer defined solely by birthright, but by decisiveness, courage, and command. The formation of the Royal Tribunal stunned even seasoned palace watchers. Unlike previous internal boards, this tribunal wielded full sovereign authority, and its decisions were final. Lord Alastair Pembroke, President of the Privy Council, addressed the press. This marks the first establishment of a sovereign family court within the British monarchy since the Plantagenets. Its jurisdiction includes titles, access, representation, and child guardianship behind palace gates. Princess Catherine and Duchess Sophie had quietly prepared for this escalation for months. Coordinating with education, child welfare, and security advisors, they had a detailed plan to safeguard Archie and Lilibet under any eventuality. Catherine's designation as royal matron was far from ceremonial. It placed her at the centre of all decisions affecting the children's future. Though she had stayed silent in the public debates within the tribunal, her voice carried the weight of unshakable authority. "This is not a punishment," she reportedly said. "It is a shield. These children are innocent in the face of their parents' ambitions." Sophie Wessex, acting as Vice-Chancellor of Domestic Affairs, added, "Lineage cannot be invoked selectively. It must carry accountability across oceans if needed." Meghan's legal team responded immediately, challenging the tribunal's jurisdiction over California-based minors and accusing the Crown of historical overreach and emotional coercion. Lord Pembroke swiftly countered. Archie and Lilibet's physical location in the United States was secondary to their birthright, privileges, and public ties to the Crown. Authority was derived from that connection, and the tribunal retained the power to enforce it. Meanwhile, intelligence reports flagged discrepancies in citizenship, schooling, and medical records. British and US authorities opened investigations. Lady Louise Windsor's 93-page internal child welfare dossier detailed inconsistencies between institutional records and public statements by Meghan, further bolstering the tribunal's stance. The session's final act was both symbolic and seismic. William stood before the tribunal holding two objects: a sealed letter from Queen Elizabeth II and a printed copy of Royal Order No. 17. He did not read the Queen's words aloud. Instead, he spoke from memory. "Do not let duty be diluted by sentiment. You are not just their brother, you are the heir to a nation." The letter went into the Royal Archive. William concluded, "Let this mark the line, and let the children be protected from what comes next." A private audience between King Charles and William had been brief but decisive. Frail yet firm, Charles signed first for Andrew, then for Harry, establishing precedent. Behind Windsor Castle, a closed royal council convened, attended only by bloodline advisers and Lord Pembroke. On the table lay the Duke of Sussex disciplinary dossier. William's voice rose, firm and measured. "Phase 2, Your Majesty. No sentiment, no compromise, no exception." Pembroke nodded solemnly. The message was clear. Even a direct son of the sovereign, if judged institutionally harmful, could be expelled without recourse. The hall felt frozen, as though even the air had paused to witness the moment. Anne's voice finally broke the silence, carrying the weight of history and the echoes of Queen Elizabeth II's warnings before her death. William's jaw tightened. He remembered his grandmother's constant admonition. A split in the family could not come at the expense of the crown. The late Queen had feared weakness more than conflict, and she had never, not once, betrayed that steadfastness. She had confided privately to Anne and Charles, cautioning against humiliating family in public, insisting that the line must always be intact. But times had changed. Meghan's commercial scandals, the alleged Netflix financial irregularities, and the emerging potential of weaponized custody battles involving Archie and Lilibet had transformed personal disputes into constitutional dilemmas. Andrew's downfall had now become the precedent, a blueprint for royal discipline in the modern era. William readied himself to apply the doctrine with unflinching rigour to Harry. A classified memorandum was drafted and sent to the Ministry of Justice, laying the legal groundwork for invoking Royal Separation Protocol 14-7, a protocol originally conceived during the Edward VIII abdication crisis. The public first glimpsed the action through a terse notice in the Royal Gazette. The Duke of Sussex will no longer be accorded sovereign privileges, travel protections, or institutional representation within the United Kingdom, effective immediately. Shockwaves rippled across the nation, tempered by relief. Polls taken the next morning revealed that 68% of Britons approved of the move. The monarchy's public standing spiked almost overnight. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic in Montecito, the silence was deafening. Harry read the decree on his iPad, children asleep in their rooms. Meghan was elsewhere, deep in consultation with legal counsel over a video call. The final line of the letter stared back at him. No return shall be contemplated until the children's full legal identities are submitted, verified, and recognised by the Crown. It was more than a rejection, it was a challenge. William had made it clear. The monarchy would no longer tolerate private disobedience under the guise of family drama. This was no longer about siblings, it was about national order. Lady Louise Windsor, recently appointed royal legal liaison at the age of 22, was now thrust into the spotlight. She had co-authored a confidential report exposing gaps in the legal documentation surrounding Archie and Lilibet. When she addressed the Privy Council, her voice wavered only slightly. No biometric verification has been submitted to the Home Office for either child. There is no formal UK residence verification and no legally recognised custodial guardian under the Royal Household Charter. These weren't rumours anymore, they were institutional findings. Lord Pembroke stepped forward with gravitas. For the first time in modern constitutional monarchy, we are establishing a House of Windsor domestic tribunal, he announced, igniting gasps from the assembled council. This internal royal court would adjudicate matters of succession, custodial responsibility, and the protection of royal privileges. It was a historic pivot, unprecedented in scale and authority. Even Sarah Ferguson, in a move that stunned the palace, submitted a handwritten note the next day in support of the decision. Her words, simple yet piercing, read, "Only when the line is drawn can the people trust the crown again." Diana would have demanded clarity. William folded the letter carefully and placed it in his personal archives, an acknowledgement of both history and the necessity of uncompromising action. In the following days, 2 unlabelled car seats, unmistakably meant for children, were discreetly loaded onto a private plane at RAF Northolt. The pilot manifest simply read, "Special custody transfer awaiting clearance." Speculation exploded. Had Harry capitulated? Was there a private deal? Then came the leak. An anonymous Montecito source revealed Harry's private words. "If it protects them, I'll let them go. I just want peace." But Meghan had other designs. Lawyers were spotted entering and exiting the Montecito estate at odd hours, fueling rumours of a pending custody war, not in California, but in The Hague, where her team reportedly sought international jurisdiction to circumvent UK rulings. The palace storm was far from over. It had merely shifted shape. William turned to Anne and said, "We've learned nothing, but the institution has." King Charles rested, exhausted yet resolute, while the crown edged closer to a vision where titles were not shields, and bloodlines did not excuse betrayal. Buckingham Palace's courtyard was still, yet tension thickened like a gathering storm. At precisely 9 a.m., the Prince of Wales's press secretary stepped forward, flanked by the Lord Chamberlain and the Archbishop of Canterbury. The royal seal glistened under the winter light as the declaration was read aloud. After careful review of private royal court deliberations, it was announced: His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, has issued a sovereign recommendation to permanently withhold reinstatement of any royal titles, privileges, or ceremonial roles for Prince Henry of Sussex. The gathered press gasped. The statement went further, invoking the House disciplinary mandate, a protocol modelled after King Charles's precedent in the removal of Prince Andrew. William framed it with moral clarity. If Charles could override Queen Elizabeth's final wish to protect Andrew, then the same logic applied to his brother. Harry was now classified as a non-participating former royal, stripped of any standing in the order of succession, funding, or ceremonial duties. Further, per Lord Pembroke's recommendations, William ordered Harry's petition for reinstatement archived with prejudice. But the shock came not from Harry's exclusion alone. The declaration embedded comprehensive future-proofing measures. Lady Louise Windsor, speaking for the Royal Legal Commission, confirmed that Archie and Lilibet would not automatically inherit royal protections. Custody, welfare and status would now depend on merit, integrity and transparency, not birthright. This was a direct response to concerns that Meghan might leverage her children's titles for financial or political gain across the UK or Commonwealth realms. The announcement cemented a constitutional principle that stunned observers. When custody disputes arise between feuding former royals, jurisdiction could now fall under a specialised house court, the first of its kind in modern British history. Lord Pembroke affirmed that this intra-royal court would handle succession disputes, ethical endangerment, and abuse of institutional prestige. In a surprising twist, Sarah Ferguson publicly endorsed William's judgment. Her handwritten letter, released with her consent, read, "Only with firm, unapologetic lines drawn between merit and chaos can the crown endure." The message marked a significant shift from her previous informal alignment with Meghan and Harry, signalling that even former sympathisers were prioritising institutional clarity over personal loyalty. Meanwhile, a leaked Montecito email suggested Harry's emotional collapse was intensifying. "He's talking about walking away completely. Kids, titles, everything," the staffer claimed. But Meghan reportedly refused to release any claim to full custody, viewing the children as central to her narrative and long-term brand. Palace insiders now braced for a custody conflict that could eclipse even the most infamous Windsor scandals of the past. At the end of the royal communique, William signed with his full ceremonial title, adding one final line: "I follow not only in the King's footsteps, but in the duty we owe to the people, not as brothers, but as guardians of history." There was no ambiguity. The door had closed, the torch had passed. Forgiveness remained possible in private life, but never at the expense of the crown. When Harry read the declaration on his iPad, he reportedly sat in silence for 20 minutes. Sources described the moment as the end of a hallucination. His hopes of returning as a reformed royal were gone. But what triggered the avalanche wasn't rejection alone, it was what followed. According to confidential excerpts obtained by Windsor Court Dispatch, the royal household had activated the Lineage Safeguard Clause, a rarely invoked statute dating to the early 20th century, revised after the Duke of Windsor's abdication and Lord Mountbatten's assassination. The clause grants the reigning monarch, or the acting sovereign, the power to withhold royal recognition, succession rights, and ceremonial entitlements from descendants whose identity or conduct threatens the integrity of the crown. Officially invoked by William and ratified by King Charles, it pauses all royal entitlements for Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor until they turn 21, and only after passing a full ethics and identity audit before the Crown Court. Meghan's response was explosive. She reportedly stormed out of a private planning session with her publicist and crisis team, signalling that this royal showdown was far from over. The Montecito sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the sprawling estate as Meghan paced her veranda, muscles tense under her athletic gear. Every step radiated agitation, every gesture a mixture of panic and defiance. The phone pressed to her ear quivered in her grip as she barked at the unseen voice on the other end. "They can't freeze my children out! I built their global identity! I gave them the brand! That's my work, my legacy!" Those words, meant to intimidate, had the opposite effect. They became a viral sensation within hours, sparking instant debate. Social media exploded, news cycles ran wild, and critics pounced with sharp precision, interpreting the declaration as confirmation of what many had long feared. Meghan viewed Archie and Lilette not as children, but as strategic assets within a high-stakes public relations empire. Across the Atlantic, the palace remained silent, a deliberate calm in the storm. But the first public voice post-fallout came not from the King or William, but from Duchess Sophie, wife of Prince Edward. At the Royal Family Ethics Symposium in Cambridge, she delivered a speech that was both moral and commanding, directed at an audience of scholars, diplomats, and aristocrats. No child should ever be wielded as a pawn, a product, or a passport. Nobility is not in the title, it is in how you protect the name that title bears. Behind the scenes, audience members erupted in a standing ovation, rare in such formal circles, signalling that the ethical lines drawn by the monarchy were not just theoretical, they were enforceable. Sophie's speech marked the formal introduction of what insiders now call the Windsor Code of Conduct, a detailed set of expectations for anyone carrying the royal surname, regardless of their official title. It outlined rules for media appearances, personal branding, financial engagements, inheritance claims, and the legal representation of minors. Palace sources confirmed that the code had been meticulously drafted with a Sussex custody battle in mind, anticipating a scenario where the royal brand could be weaponized for personal gain. While the ethical framework solidified, financial realities tightened their grip. Documents obtained by the Daily Ledger revealed that Montecito's estate taxes for 2026 were overdue by $134,000, compounded by the collapse of Archwell's donor network and a rumoured Netflix early exit clause worth $24 million. Insiders warned that Prince Harry was bleeding cash and emotional resilience, dangerously close to defaulting on his Montecito mortgage. Meghan's personal trust fund had been restructured the previous year, with no access for Harry, and the palace lifeline had vanished. Every option for financial rescue had been systematically cut off. A desperate outreach reportedly occurred. Harry allegedly contacted Tyler Perry for emergency bridge financing. Sources close to Perry explained, it wasn't personal, it was reputational. Nobody wants to bankroll someone being shut out by both their birth family and the public. The rejection was final. A palace aide later confirmed a final call between the brothers before the decision went public. Harry's voice, tinged with disbelief and exhaustion, asked, "So that's it? You're just cutting me off forever?" William's reply was deliberate, calm, and unyielding. "No, I'm letting you go because you refuse to let go of what broke us." Silence stretched between the brothers. Palace documentation emphasised that William's action was institutional, not personal, a demonstration of responsibility over sentiment. Even Queen Camilla, traditionally reticent in public family disputes, reportedly endorsed the decision, marking a historic alignment between Charles, William, Anne, Edward, and Camilla. Royal aides dubbed this united front the Windsor Blockade, signalling an impenetrable stance against any back-channel return for Harry and Meghan. It encompassed revoked diplomatic protection in the UK, legally severed family communications, blocked access to royal archives, and the formal exclusion of Archie and Lilette from the updated line of succession registry. In a first for modern royal history, the children were officially designated out-of-status descendants, OSD. Meghan, undeterred, reportedly signed a preliminary deal for a tell-all memoir titled The Crown Kept My Children, despite multiple non-disparagement clauses from the 2020 Sussex exit negotiations. Legal analysts warned that the book could violate contractual obligations, and palace advisors labelled it a potential nuclear option. But the public's response, they predicted, would not be sympathy. It would validate the Windsor Doctrine. Silence is not weakness, but discipline and fortitude. Buckingham Palace's eastern wing, once quiet and shadowed, became a fully operational command centre. Lord Pembroke took the lectern in the Royal Gallery to announce the monumental custodial verdict. By royal authority and full advisory of the Family Oversight Council, Prince William of Wales, acting sovereign, declared the full legal and logistical revocation of custodial rights of Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and Lily Diana Mountbatten Windsor from their biological mother, Meghan Markle. The ruling's impact was historic. For the first time since Queen Victoria, the United Kingdom had established a royal family custodial tribunal, distinct from civil courts, empowered by the 2024 Succession Reform Charter. Princess Anne had quietly prepared the groundwork over 2 years, but it was Lady Louise Windsor, her protégée, who finalised the framework, ensuring that royal minors would be shielded from media exploitation, marital instability, and cross-border legal loopholes. The tribunal cited more than a dozen legal grounds: breaches of the 2020 Sussex Agreement, monetisation of royal titles, and a pattern of strategic misinformation. Evidence ranged from photoshopped Christmas card metadata, monetised narratives, Netflix memos linking Royal Rift content to paediatric appointments, and contradictions in medical documentation. Lady Louise's report made it clear: their identities have been weaponised. This ruling is not vengeance, it is rescue. Prince Harry, absent due to emotional collapse and intercepted communications, reportedly signed a non-objection agreement. The children would be relocated to a neutral, trauma-informed estate in Kent, formerly Princess Margaret's country home, managed by non-aristocratic caretakers. Princess Catherine, now Guardian General of Royal Minors, retained ceremonial oversight without daily involvement. "This is not a palace," Catherine stated, "but it is peace." The media frenzy was immediate. Meghan released a social video showing herself with children's drawings, eyes filled with tears, whispering, "They've erased my motherhood. They've stolen my babies because I wouldn't bow." Public reaction, however, had shifted. Hashtags like #ProtectTheLine, #NoRoyalLeaks, and #CustodyNotCurrency trended worldwide. Analysts noted that Meghan's dual US citizenship claims for her children did not override Windsor Charter protections. The final legal confirmation came from Sarah Ferguson, who publicly released a letter supporting William's ruling. "I once thought silence protected the Crown, but I've learned it protects abusers more. Children are not bargaining chips, not even royal ones." Hours later, the US Embassy in London confirmed it would not challenge the relocation, citing British jurisdiction and mutual child protection treaties. Prince Harry reportedly entered emotional hibernation. A longtime bodyguard said he barely ate, often slept in his car. Meghan, undeterred, allegedly told her sister-in-law Samantha, "He thinks love can undo protocol, proof that devotion alone could not counter institutional authority." The most intimate, heartbreaking moment appeared in an unsigned letter discovered by royal aides. Written 2 days after the tribunal ruling, it read, "To my children, I loved you before titles. I love you now without them. One day you'll understand why I stepped back, but I hope you'll forgive me for what I couldn't stop." Security was overhauled. Frogmore Cottage came under Crown Estate management. Clarence House redefined royal heir, excluding descendants stripped of titles for institutional violations. Princess Anne quietly expanded the Family Affairs Office in Scotland, introducing a protocol for internal crises and reputational threats. The most haunting shift appeared online. Under a grey and white portrait of King Charles, Prince William, Princess Catherine, George, Charlotte and Louis, 2 names were gone: Archie and Lily. A small digital footnote read, "Status updated in accordance with Royal Custodial Tribunal Ruling 2026. No fanfare, no emotion, just a date." And for those watching closely, it marked the end of not just an era, but of a lineage. The message was unmistakable, and the era of institutional clarity over personal loyalty had begun. For those following the saga, it was time to witness how the Crown would protect its own, no matter the cost. If you want the full breakdown of every royal manoeuvre, every leaked document, and the inside story behind the Windsor blockade, subscribe, comment, and follow along. The story isn't over, and the Crown never forgets.